University, and welcome to episode 3 of What's New BSU. I'm Andy Bartlett. I'm Executive Director of Communications and Marketing, and I hope you are all having a fantastic week. Today feels like a particularly busy Friday, and I'm glad you've all chosen to spend 30 minutes of it with me here on this ridiculous show. And my treat for you this week for joining me is I'm not going to talk very much. I have a lot of good stuff that your colleagues have sent in for this week's show, and so I don't have a whole lot to say. But one quick thing, remember last week when I said we'd share hashtag Active April photos? Well, I didn't, so we're not going to do that. So I hope you're not here looking forward to seeing those. So to get started for today, I want to introduce you all to the countdown.
Zero.
That is right. It is 28 days until commencement, which means we are exactly halfway through this COVID-19 crisis for this semester. The Chancellor first announced the extension to spring break a little over 4 weeks ago, and now we are 4 weeks away from commencement. So that means that we are in the home stretch. This is a really good opportunity for everyone that's watching this show this morning to feel really good about what you've helped BSU accomplish over the last month, and to feel really good about the fact that we have made it halfway through this and that we only have 4 weeks to go. We said we were going to keep our employees safe and well, and we've done that. And we said we were going to make sure our students finish their semesters, and we're doing that right now. So gold star for you, Bemidji State. We'll keep it up for another 4 weeks until we get through to the end of this semester. But I know you're all here for fun stuff from your colleagues, so let's meet the pet menagerie at the home of BSU graphic design specialist Mike Lee. So a Mike Lee joint thing that cracks me up every time. I love that. If you haven't had a chance to meet Mike, that tells you pretty much everything that you need to know about him. He's a really, really talented designer, but he's also an awesome guy, and BSU's lucky to have him. So thanks, Mike, for contributing that for us here this morning. So I said last week that one of the things we were going to do this week was hobbies, and I did not forget about that. So let's get our hobbies feature started with my deputy third floor friend, Cindy Peterson. the kind of person who likes to dabble in lots of different kinds of things, so the variety of stuff that she's shared really speaks to me. Although I have to admit that the difference is that my most impressive hobby is the collection of unfinished projects. So now I wanted to get us to this week's featured guests. On the show so far, we've talked to John Perlich from faculty, we've talked to Sherry Laudermill from administration, so I thought it was time we heard from a student. And I couldn't think of a better candidate for the job than student body president Matt Sauser.
Hey, Andy.
All right, so thank you for joining me this morning, Matt. How's it going?
I'm good. How about you?
Good. So the first thing I wanted to ask you is to just share a little bit of your background with us, where you're from, where you went to high school, what your major is, just those kinds of things. Let's just get to know you a little bit for those of us who haven't had a chance to meet you.
Yeah. So, like Andy said, I'm Matthew Sauser. I went to high school at Monticello Senior High School. Where I come from is kind of a, it's in a little internal joke among people who know me is that I say 3 different places. But I always do where I most grew up, and that's always Monticello, Minnesota. It's kind of where I consider home. And then my major is political science.
Okay, so you're student body president at BSU, which means that you've got a lot of different things going on. And I know that having known you for the last couple of years, I know that you've got a pretty extensive background in politics, locally and even at the state level a little bit. So why don't you give us an update on your political background just a bit?
Yeah, so throughout, like I said, I've always been involved in politics from high school. I was really involved in high school with getting a referendum passed to help fund our like new athletic equipment, high school security, stuff like that. I was really advocating for that post-graduation. But then coming to college, kind of got more involved, helped organize with the College Democrats on campus, a governor's forum, which we had Lori Swanson, Aaron Murphy, I can't remember the other candidates, but I think it was 5 out of 6 governor candidates came and had a small little like forum on campus, which was really cool to see. And then I spent some time in 2018, actually spent some time, cut down to part-time at school to do field organizing with John Purcell in the DFL House Caucus. And then continuing working, and like I said, that kind of spiraled into this role now, student body president.
So do you have aspirations for being involved in politics after you graduate?
I don't personally see myself in elected office. That's not the kind of, I'm hoping this is the only role in elected office I have. Anything bigger than that, it's a little too much responsibility, I think. But I do definitely love the organizing and the background work. Campaign managing and stuff like that is a kind of something that's really spoken to me in the last couple of years, and really took off, and I did have the chance to basically be that go-to guy for John Purcell and his campaign. And then now, like I said, I'm kind of serving as an intern role on the side for Rita Albright, her state Senate campaign. And so, yeah, definitely, like I said, in the future, hoping to kind of get into that field of campaign and managing and organizing.
Okay, cool. It's a lot of stuff going on, and I've always been impressed in talking to you just how many different things that you've managed to get yourself involved in. It's pretty cool. So I guess let's talk about this COVID-19 situation just from a student perspective a little bit. Just for yourself, what was your reaction when you first found out that spring break was being extended and then started having this conversation about your classes moving online? I mean, how did you deal with that yourself?
Yeah, it was a little like, I kind of knew it was coming. Frankly, it's all kind of a blur. I couldn't even remember like when I first found out, frankly. But definitely the only thing, like I said, I remember leading up to it was weirdly, it was in Washington, D.C., and coincidentally, we were with the 6 other university student body presidents. So it was St. Cloud State, Winona, Mankato, all of us student body presidents were together doing lobbying in D.C. And we were just watching the news as everything kind of started rolling in. And I remember the moment it became real was when the NBA canceled their season. And I looked over to the Morehead's president, Will, and I was like, oh my gosh, is this actually happening? He's like, I guess it is. And then on the phone that night with Travis Green and others, and kind of said, and then from that point on, it's kind of just all a blur of everything happening. And, I can't believe I was in DC 2 weeks ago. It's felt like 2 months ago. So Yeah, no, it's wild. But for online classes, it's pros and cons. Definitely some of the pros. Well, the nice thing is, especially doing campaign work or being involved in politics and trying to do that work after college here in 2020. This has actually helped me kind of get some classes out of the way, and so I can concentrate more on that work. And so I have 2 classes which I'm actually trying to finish up here in the next week or so. Whereas the rest of the class is still a couple of weeks away from their final. I talked to my professors, and they basically just gave me everything and said, "Here you go, good luck." And it's like I said, I'm just wrapping it up there, so that I can kind of take a full-time job while finishing up my last few classes and get into it. Some of the cons are, it's sad not to see everybody. I didn't realize that even the people that kind of you didn't talk to, but you saw and acknowledged and you sat next to every day and you weren't friends outside of that class. Definitely missing those kind of people right now.
So in addition to moving your classwork online, you've also, as Student Senate President, had to move Student Senate online. What's that been like?
Went way smoother than I expected, to be frank with you. You know, there's always that fear of, like, especially when it comes to government and like that kind of role, is that, you know, it's not the most joyful topics. Talking about tuition, talking about enrollment, the pros and cons of dealing with that, especially in a generation of college students that are shrinking. It's not a fun topic. In the last couple of weeks, our meetings have been very serious topics. And so I was a little concerned that once we had to move online, that we wouldn't have senators coming back. But no, my Senate blew me out of the water. They were like, when are we meeting? I got a lot of messages from them saying, hey, even though we're not meeting, can I work on this bill? Can I work on this issue? No, we've gone 110% now that we've moved online, which, like I said, just kind of baffles me. So I'm excited what they have coming for them.
That's great. So what does Student Senate have planned in this last month as we sprint toward finals week here?
Yeah, the biggest objective right now is elections. We have to get, for my own sake even, we have to get a new student body president. We have to make sure that's done as publicly as possible. It's really difficult, especially online, and now that our students are not concentrated on campus and that they're spread all over the country and the world. Again, trying to make sure that they all meet the candidates. Get to meet all the candidates and feel informed enough to make a vote, and then go vote itself is quite the process. And we've had countless hours of meetings about it. But last night we had our first meet the candidates. That's on our Facebook, and it went really well. We're planning on doing a debate next week, and then hopefully one more, I should say, one more meet the candidates on election week, which is on April 20th through the 22nd.
Okay. Then what's the process going to be like for students to actually cast their ballots?
It'll be online. It's luckily that's the one part we've actually already done online, is we do no actual handwritten ballots at all. And so you just go on BeaverLink, and then you need to be able, as a student, you'll be able to go on BeaverLink, and then it should actually be right in the center of the page. It should be a big vote in the 2020 presidential election. And you click on that, and then it will bring you to the ballot that has everything on it of all of our Senate, Vice President, and presidential candidates.
Great. So as voice of the student body, I know that you have a lot of connections, not only here on campus, but through your involvement with Students United, and like you said, with your relationships with the other state university presidents. So what sort of feedback have you heard from BSU students about what they're experiencing during this pandemic response?
If you're, like I said, a lot of interesting responses. I think one thing I try to kind of keep in my mind is that kind of putting myself in their shoes, and especially with the situation with the dorms closing and everything like that. Got a lot of feedback from students, positive and negative, and it was very helpful to see the student body's actually been way more vocal right now than I've ever seen it before, which I think is very important. Clearly, they trust this year's Senate, which is a victory in my book. But like I said, it's a lot of pros and cons. Some students are really mixed about this. Some students didn't want to do online classes. They historically struggled with them, and so when we first announced we were going online, there was some panic about how to do with my grades and stuff like that. And I put it online classes, and making sure that just kind of send that up to administration and working with Min-State to allow us to do alternative methods that work with every student. And so, like I said, between those two roles, we've been able to kind of provide a ton of resources for our students to the best of our abilities. So, and it's the same way in every campus, from what I've been hearing from my other student body presidents.
Good. So of the things that you've heard from students, what are some kinds of things that they have mentioned that are going well, and maybe even some of the things that they've mentioned to you that are not going so well, or that they have ideas for ways that BSU could be doing better?
Yeah. Things have been going well. A lot of people applaud the decision to move classes to an alternative format. I'd say we're not going to like it. We understand, but everyone also doesn't want to get the grandma sick. So every student I've talked to has really been understanding about it. And the quote has always been, I get it, but I don't agree with it. Or I just don't like it. Like they understand why they're doing it. They support the reasoning, but they just don't want it to happen. A lot of the feedback I've been getting too, that's kind of been more on the negative side a little bit too, is a lot of graduating seniors, including myself. Like I said, in the first couple of weeks, I kind of labeled as being robbed of our last year, by COVID. The last semester, it's that last chance to hang out with friends and kind of be a kid yet. And that's been taken away. And now, here we are 2 weeks, or like you said, 4 weeks away, 28 days away from being an adult, or like a real adult. So there's some students kind of having some issues with that and kind of reality setting, I think, because of that with COVID. But people are making do. I've seen more and more, stories on Snapchat and Instagram and all the other social medias of meetings like this of friends. They're doing happy hours with their friends. So it's kind of said people are finding ways to adapt and kind of live out that last semester of the college life. Some of the pros are definitely having that chance to kind of just be at home that one last time too before you also become an actual adult. It's been that kind of nice spending time with your family. Some people on our campus, and even me, I haven't been home too much since coming to college because of how busy I am. And so, and I'm actually still not at home right now. I'm at my apartment, but I've been communicating more with my family now than I have been probably in the last year or so. And so that's been kind of nice change. And they've been helping me kind of say, hey, with school wrapping up, you should be thinking about this, this, and this, kind of helping me prepare for the future. And I've been hearing that a lot from other students as well. Kind of saying, being able to have that home and just revisiting family before I go off and get a full-time job.
Oh, that's great. That's not a perspective that I would have thought of, so I'm glad that you brought that up. Well, we've got about 30 seconds left in this segment, so is there anything else that you want to add before we say goodbye?
Nothing too much. I just want to quickly do a quick shout out to our, like I said, administration, faculty, staff. They're working insanely hard. I imagine some of the emails they're getting are not the prettiest at times, parents freaking out, students freaking out. I imagine a lot of that's dulled down now, but for that first 2 weeks there, my heart went out to them, and I can only imagine the frustration that went through all this and the many decisions they didn't want to make, but they had to make. And personally, I thank them for doing the work they did. And I wish there's something I could give them or do for them. And I'm still looking in that. But yeah, so like I said, just kind of a shout out to everyone who, made sure that we could complete school and made sure that it was as smooth as possible.
Fantastic. Thanks. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning, Matt. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank you for everything that you've done to advocate for our students, not just here on campus, but even at the state level and, like you said, at the national level too. So just thank you for everything you've done for BSU over the last few years.
Thank you.
All right. So this next segment is a hobbies segment, and it's quite a bit longer than some of our other features have been, but I really feel like it's worth it. Mike Herbert in criminal justice has turned his love of restoring old cars into some really incredible and important work to bring World War II era military vehicles back to life. Mike shot a really great tour of his garage here in town, and I'm thrilled that I'm able to share this with you this morning. So here is Mike Herbert.
Greetings from my garage. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike Herbert. I'm a professor in the Criminal Justice Department. And Andy asked me that I do a little video on what I spend most of my free time doing, that is rebuilding old cars. And it fits right in with this week of hobbies, so I thought I'd just give you a little brief tour of my shop and kind of what I do with most of my time off and most of my free money as well. So let's get started. First vehicle I'd like to point out in specific is this 1942 Ford Jeep. Now you're saying, now wait a minute, Ford didn't make Jeeps in World War II. Well, actually they did. Willys got the contract at the beginning of the war to build these Jeeps, but they couldn't meet production demand. So the government says, okay, we're going to basically allow Ford to copy their design, their pattern, and let Ford make these as well. So there were about 650,000 of these made during World War II, and Ford made about 285,000 of those. Once again, this is an authentic 1942 Jeep. I purchased this a couple years ago. This is a 2-year restoration, and I tried to keep it as original as I possibly could. This Jeep was actually delivered to the military. You can tell by looking on the data plates here, which are on the glove box. The date of delivery for this vehicle was May 11th, 1942. And the interior is pretty Spartan. These weren't designed for comfort at all. But you can see I've done such things as replaced the first aid kit, which sat underneath the dash, and that's period correct, as well as the fire extinguisher. Pretty simple gauges. This is a 4-wheel drive vehicle. It has 2 seats. This is your safety device here, the strap, and that's about it. And it's got this little bench seat in the back that'll hold a couple people and a couple storage areas for tools and those kinds of things as well. Interesting story. I purchased this from a gentleman who lives just outside of Fort Indiantown Gap, which is still a National Guard base, but during World War II, it was a big Army post, and this is typically where many people were sent overseas, or when they came back, this is where they were released from duty. What happened was the vehicle was sold shortly after the war. It was bought by the local school district. And then when the school district got tired of it, they sold it to a gas station, and they used it for running errands and those kinds of things. And then it passed down to the person I bought it from, and they just got tired of it. And it really was a basket case when I bought it. There was a lot of work that went into this thing. It does not have the original engine. Everything else in it is original as I could make it. But it has a war period correct. It has a 1945 engine, a Willys engine in it. The Ford engine was not in it when I bought it. So that's the Jeep. My current project, if you can see, it's quite a monster. This is an M3A1 Scout car. This is an armored vehicle designed to carry people and to do some advanced scouting for the troops. Now, as far as I can tell, and as far as the information that I've gotten, there's only 3 of these in the state of Minnesota, and this is one of them. And so it might be tough to see right now. So when it's done, it should look like that. And it's, for example, in the front of the vehicle here, this is 1/2-inch sheet steel. So all the way in the front half of this vehicle, it's 1/2-inch sheet steel. You can notice here that this folds down against the windshield, and they have just a couple of small ports that you can look through. Same thing with the doors. These doors fold up. And so when you've got people inside, you can button this thing up, and there are what are called pistol ports if you have to shoot from there. The interior, once again, this is what I've got. It's going to take a long time to get this thing done. The brackets that you see on there are for a rail system. Now what happens is this rail goes all the way around the inside of the vehicle, and on the rail sits 3 automatic weapons, 50 caliber and 230 caliber, and they sat on trolleys. And so the gunners in this vehicle could basically rotate these automatic weapons 360 degrees around the vehicle to wherever they felt that they needed to take some affirmative action. Okay. Huge vehicle. It's so cool though. I doubt if anyone's ever actually seen one. But this is going to be a long-term project, but it's going to be a lot of fun. When it's done, it's going to weigh 8,800 pounds. So yeah, it's quite the beast. Most of my parts I ended up getting from Europe because that's where most of them were left. And so there were only 28,000 made in World War II, and most of them were left overseas when they came back. So if you notice in the front here, there's a roller. This is called an anti-ditching roller, so that when you went into steep ditches, you wouldn't get hung up on the frame and it would roll. There's a couple of springs that go on here, and I just got those last week from a fellow in Belgium. Here's the engine for this thing. It's quite a beast. And I got most of these parts from two fellas, one in Nashville and the other one in New Orleans. So hard to find parts, but that's kind of the fun of it as well. Some of the other things we've got back in the corner hiding there is Mallory's 1970 Mustang Convertible. So as soon as I can convince her to get over here and fix the transmission, she can ride around in that thing. 57 Bel Air, 86 Jaguar, a 1958 Edsel. You don't see Edsels much anymore. Those are kind of neat cars. You either really like them or you really hate them because they're very distinctly designed. Kind of my cool hot rod drive around, get myself in trouble car, 1958 Bel Air. This is a pretty cool car. It's got quite the motor and things in it, so that's a lot of fun as well to scoot around in. Lastly, in this building, 1938 Buick Special. Sitting on the Buick here are the fenders for the Scout car. You can hear that's some significant steel. Some of the other posters and things like that, Deb has bought for me and framed and done all that work herself. That gas pump that you see in the back, she refinished that all herself and did all that kind of stuff. So I've got the mandatory nap couch and those kinds of things as well. So I'll leave you with two things. Number one, if you know a World War II veteran that would appreciate a ride in this Jeep, you let me know and we'll make it work. That's what it's for. It's to be used. A lot of people say, oh, you know, you must be a warmonger or something like that, and that's definitely not the case. I restore these vehicles out of respect and memory for the folks, the men and women in World War II that served our country. And basically, I look at this as giving history a future. I'm trying to save these things before they're all gone, and I appreciate it. So if you know a World War II vet that would like to take a ride, you let me know, and we'll make it work. Secondly, if for some reason you know someone who has a World War II era vehicle that is just sitting and rotting away somewhere, please let me know. I'm very much enthused about saving all of these vehicles. Even if it's really, really rough, these things can be saved. So if you know someone that's got one for sale or that's just sitting out in the field and rusting away or something, please give me a call. You can get a hold of me through BSU email, obviously, and I also have a Facebook account. So if you've got any questions or anything like that, please feel free to give me a call, and I'd be glad to chat with you about anything kind of World War II-ish related. So thanks for watching, and be safe, folks.
I just love that line so much about giving history a future. I love the work that he's doing, and I knew that I wanted to share this with everybody. So thank you very much, Mike, for putting that together. So now, as we wrap up this week's show, we're going to stay in the criminal justice department, and we're going to meet Jan Hoyer's dog, Franklin. And as we are looking forward to a snow-free existence, we're going to recall the first time that Franklin jumped off the deck. So hopefully Franklin works on his technique a little bit this summer. Thanks, Jan, for sharing that with us. So that's our show, everybody. I wanted to thank you all for taking time out of your Friday to join me. Remember, we are all in this together. We want our students and employees to stay safe, healthy, and well. We want our students to complete their semesters, and we are one Bemidji State. And remember, from the countdown at the beginning, 28 days left. We're halfway through this. So I hope you all can join me again next week, same Beaver time, same Beaver channel for another episode of What's New BSU. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.